Welcome to the webinar on the overview of the new Vessel Audit Checklist that will be available via the form.com tomorrow, October the 29th. So upon launch, everybody will get an email that has your portal login information and everything and how to access the portal. So you just click on the link that's in the email, and that will bring you to this page here. And then your login credentials, which are provided in the email to log in. And that'll bring you to the main page. And here you'll see this is the Vessel Audit Checklist, and you also have the option to choose the TSMS Management Audit Checklist. So make sure that it's highlighted. In order to access the form, you come over here and click Add New. And then it'll launch right into the audit form. Just like the vessel management or the TSMS management audit, the vessel audit has all the company information here on the main page. So you'll just fill it out like you normally would any other form. We're going to use today's date as the audit. And facility name, if there is any, river. And then the mile marker. This is a fake mile marker. I'm just making one up. So questions you see here that are highlighted in red are logic driven questions. So any of these questions that you answer will determine future questions that are in the checklist. So depending on how you answer it, it determines which answers you see later on. So anything that you see red lettering in will drive a question or the removal of a question later on in the form. And once you've answered all the questions here, you click next. And it'll take you to the next page. Up here you have a show hide internal comment boxes, just like on the management audit. You can click show, and these will bring up internal comment boxes after every question, so you can make notes as you're going through, so you can type in. So it's kind of like an extra little notepad that you can have right there on the computer or in the app to help you keep up with your answers and the answers that you receive during the audit itself. Your audit objective, this will set the questions, whether they are subchapter M and AWO RCP combined, or if it's a subchapter M only audit. Which option has the company chosen for vessel compliance, whether it be the TSMS or the Coast Guard option? And then the auditor's information. If you have additional auditors, you can click here, yes, and it'll bring up additional fields down below, so you can add as many auditors or apprentice auditors that you need to add to continue on with the audit. At the end of every section, you have an option to save. This will come in handy if you are working, say, on a mobile device instead of a laptop. So you can sync it between the mobile app and the computer-based version. That way, if something was to happen, you were to lose power, you can go back and sync it up, and you wouldn't lose any information that you've entered to this point. Click next. So the company name automatically fills into this one. Then all you have to do is provide the address and information here, the office telephone number, and a 24-hour contact, the point of contact for follow-up. So basically just the same. One thing I wanted to point out in this section here is the OCMI notification. Yes, it was notified 72 hours prior to the event. We'll say that we notified him on the 24th. Whenever you select a district here, some people get concerned about this little red X that pops up in each box. That doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. What that means is you can, if you've made a mistake and you selected X or District 8 and you meant to select District 7, you can clear it out and go back in. Some people have asked us about what that red X means, thinking that they did something wrong, but that's not the case. It's just so you can correct any mistakes that you might have made with the selection of which unit. You go on to there, and then it'll automatically populate that information. Here you can do the contact name, how you notified them, and then this section brings up the key non-vessel personnel that took place in the audit. We're going to leave some of those blank, and we'll skip over to vessel crew. These navigation tabs at the top of the screen and at the bottom of every page will help you navigate your way through the audit as well. So if you need to skip around and answer a question in section 2, you can come up here and click 2, because if you click next, certain questions are required to be answered, and it's not going to let you move forward by clicking the next button until all the required answers have been answered on that page. So if you need to skip around, use the navigation tabs up at the top. But if not, you can complete what's on the page and then hit the next button, and it'll take you to the next section. Vessel crew information here, captain, and then whether they attended the opening meeting and the closing meeting. And then you can add more, as many as you need, up to 15 people here. Up at the top of this question, it has what licensed wheelhouse are required to have as far as credentials go. And then after you review the credentials for each person based on their position, you click whether or not there is an issue with them or there's not one. Answering this question here is what's going to generate a finding on the findings table, and then up here it's not going to. So any answers up here won't affect the audit findings table, but the question to this answer here will.
Right. Jeremy, we had a question about the internal comments. They asked if the internal comments remained as part of the audit record.
No, the internal comments do not remain as part of the audit record. They remain in the database, but they will not be included in the record itself whenever it's sent to a customer. So those will not appear on the audit report. Vessel particular information, you can see some of those are highlighted in red as well. That again means that it's based on a logic question later on. So if it's a new vessel built, so you're going to have those type of questions show up. So if we just do prior to 2017, so 1978, official number, this vessel, COI, date, just say they got it earlier this month. This here is a new question on the checklist, and again, it's only in here because we wanted to drive logic to whether or not an audit has been completed within 6 months after issuance of the COI. Then all your basic questions here, again, is the vessel subject to MTSA? Do they employ a tankerman? Does the vessel have an engineer on board? So if you answer yes to this, you'll see MTSA related questions later on. If you answer no, that they do not have a tankerman, but they do have an engineer, you won't have any tankerman questions that show up that you have to ask. The rest of it is just basically, just like any other checklist, the functionality is the same. And you, like I said, you answer the questions and click next to go through each section. So let's just go through here and mark some questions. You can see as I answered yes to this one here, it popped up another questions, and then no, the deficiencies haven't been closed out. Internal audits are, this company uses the internal survey program. You can see each one of these are logic based questions that propped up another one. And that's the notice that you're going to get if you try to go on without answering any required questions. So that should, one other thing before we get into the audit summary is we have now incorporated the emergency drill checklist. into this electronic form. List the vessel crew up here, and then you can select which type of emergency drill was conducted, and only the questions pertaining to those type of drills are going to be presented. So if we did a fire and a man overboard drill, click those two, and you'll see the questions pertaining to the emergency drill pop up there. Then go through and answer this. One thing about this is still a standalone document, so it will not, your answers here will not populate the audit findings. It'll be handled the same way that it currently is with the paper-based versions. And then as you go through down at the bottom, same way for the paper-based, you have an option to, you have the requirement to sign saying that the drill took place, and confirm that you witnessed the emergency drills and it happened as you noted above. One thing I was going to show everybody on here, and there are several select all type questions throughout the checklist. To make it easy, you can either, if they meet all the requirements, you can come down here and select all and it'll highlight everything other than the none of the above. But by the same token, if you've clicked on several of them and then you realize that they don't meet those, you can come down and click none of the above and it'll clear out everything that you've selected. Just a little functionality that will simplify things as you're going through the checklist on. I see a question that popped up. Is that a CFR link? Yes, so you click on the CFR link and it will bring you to the electronic CFR for that requirement. I don't think the CFR, someone asked, does the link work on and offline? The CFR link, I do not believe will work offline, but I think will the RCP link have it since it's in
it should, because it's a document that's embedded, but the CFR references will not, because it goes out to the current eCFR to pull it live.
All right, the audit summary. These are the auditor attestation questions here, saying that you conducted the audit in accordance with the requirements and the regulations. So all of these should be marked as yes. And if not, it would drive a finding. All right, so this here is the findings table based on any non-compliant answers that were supplied during the course of the audit. As you can see, it will automatically populate the question, the response that was given during there. You can bring in any internal notes here. So if you wanted to comment, you can edit that, whether it's a finding or not a finding. Or if it's a major nonconformity or an unsafe condition, you mark it there. And then here's where you type your finding statements. So 835 issued. So for each one of these, you determine whether or not it was a finding. If it wasn't a finding, and then over on the finding statement column is where you will make your good, thorough finding statements so that they're understandable by those who will be reviewing the audit. Are there any additional findings that weren't directly attributed to the questions on the checklist? Yes or no? And again, here's where these are all free-form text fields. What the regulatory site was, or the TSMS site, if you're going to cite it to the TSMS for the company. Again, finding, unsafe condition, major nonconformity, and your finding statements. And then you can add as many more as necessary. And this one goes up to 15 as well.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Just one thing I wanted to point out: if you should choose an item that ends up on the summary table, if you indicate that it is not a finding, you still have to write a statement to explain why it was not a finding.
Yep. Thank you for that, Tab. I appreciate that.
Sure.
So yeah, if it's not a finding, so if we wanted to say this one was finding, 835 was issued on this time, but target completion date has not yet passed. So that would mean that they're within their time frame to get the corrective action plan implemented for the 835. So that wouldn't necessarily be a finding for this one. Thanks, Taba. Anybody else got any questions about this one? If you have any here, go ahead and enter those and then click next. And at the very end, you're going to hit the submit button. And it may not let me because I didn't answer all, yeah, so it's not going to let me because I didn't answer all the questions in the form, but you'll get a notice that says thank you, form has been submitted. And then that's how we will get notified that the report is in the system and ready to view. And then Lindsay or Cindy can go into the system, access it, and then put it into our system for the review process. And then we'll get the final report out or send it to whoever we need to for corrections that might need to be made.
Yeah, I would encourage you to test it out, try it out, play with it a little bit before you actually try to go out and do your first audit using it. Obviously, on the boat side of things, a tablet may be your best option, but think about those things that you need to do to secure your device, whether it's an OtterBox or some sort of float protection, waterproofing, what have you, since you're going to be out there exposed to the environment and such. Get out there, test it, and let us know your thoughts. We want to continue to improve and enhance them as we go along. But and I appreciate the thanks to the staff for the hours and time that have gone into it. Obviously, we've tested it quite a bit, but there's just no way to test every single element. You just don't know some things until you put it through the ropes. So thank you.
All right, I guess the last note would be to say that, again, this is going to launch and be available for use tomorrow, but on November 15th, this electronic-based version will be required to be used for all vessel audits going forward. So it'll be available if you want to use it tomorrow, but it will be required to be used on November the 15th. That's about it as far as how the form works. Does anybody have any questions?
Are the expiration dates, reference numbers, etc., required to be recorded?
I believe right now we do have it set up as a mandatory answer for those. So yes, as of right now, yes, it would have to be an answer would have to be into those positions.
Okay. Next question is, a vessel could be built this year, but be built with existing keel. How is that resolved?
That would be one of those, if it was to create a finding on the table, on the audit findings table, you would mark it as no finding, and then write your statement attesting to that, the situation that exists for that particular vessel.
And do we have to type in all the crew names again?
I will build in some piping on that. We can do that to where it sets up, but the reason why we didn't originally is because maybe it was done with some people asleep and not participating, because there has been instances in that case that have occurred. But Tava, I think you were wanting to jump in, so I'll let you speak too.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I've got a thought on that of how to accomplish that to avoid the auditor having to retype the same information. We can potentially add a kind of like we do the opening closing meeting on the front end where you check it, and if they were at both, we could do a participated in the drill, yes or no. And if you select yes, then their name would appear on the report. If you select no, then it won't. And that way you're only capturing those out of the crew that were in attendance.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's doable. It's an easy modification to make.
Okay, the next question is, what does the final report to the customer look like?
It would look similar to, and I should have had one submitted, but it would look similar to what they currently receive as far as the management audit goes. So they would receive it would have the cover sheet where it has the company information, the findings table, and the statements and everything, along with a blank corrective action plan. And that's what they would receive as far as the final audit goes.
Okay, a few more here. Would the type of audit also be determined by the TSMS certificate?
I'll
Go ahead.
answer that one. We have a survey out right now to all of our customers because the RCP in January of this year had a significant change that allows an RCP operator that is audited to Part 138 to allow that audit to satisfy for RCP certifications. So we've actually got a survey out to all of our TPO customers that are currently RCP certified, asking them, do they want to continue to be audited to Subchapter M and the additional RCP standards, or to the Part 138 Sub M only? And so we're still collecting those responses. So it will definitely impact the way that we move forward. And you'll, as an auditor completing that audit on management and Vessel, you're going to need to know what that company's selection has been. And I can anticipate potentially building that into the notification part for booking. Lauren might have to speak to that, and I don't know if she's available to speak to that online at the moment, but that's some areas that we're still looking at.
And one more, is there a way to print a copy of the audit report after submitted?
Sorry, I was on mute. We are working with form.com right now to make sure that that is available to you guys to print after submitting, so you can keep for your records. But you can always you should still have access into the electronic on your portal whenever you enter into form.com on the main page.
What you will continue as an auditor, you will continue to be on the distribution of the final report. So once the report is made final, you'll have it. I suspect the question is, you know, I've gone out to the boat or I've gone out to the office, conducted the audit, and I just happen to want, because my work style, I want to print a paper copy and maybe review it that way or what have you. And that's kind of what Jeremy's referring to, is that we're working with form.com for that option. But I would really caution you against this, in that that is preliminary and it will never show all of the questions that you answered because of logic and those sorts of things. And there's really not a way around that that is a workable solution.
And then once we launch this as well, the paper-based version of this audit checklist will be placed on the TVIB portal page, just like the TSMS management audit is. But again, that will have every single question on here that's on the checklist. So even if the ones that are hidden by logic on the electronic version, they're going to be on the paper-based version. So you just have to know which ones to skip over on the paper-based version. And if for some reason you have to use the paper-based version to conduct the audit due to connectivity issues for both the app and your tablet or computer-based version, you will have to then go back and enter it into the electronic system in order for it to be submitted. The paper-based version will not be accepted or for review here at TVIB.
And I'll go ahead and chime in before someone asks the next obvious question based on that. And that is the system, especially if you are using the app version. Now, there is an app version that can be downloaded to a Windows computer. There is also an app version that can be downloaded to an Apple iOS device or an Android device. When you complete a checklist through one of the three app versions, it actually downloads the entire checklist to your device, as you're answering it, and you're saving, it is saving locally to your device so that if you lose internet connection, you still have the form in its entirety and you can add your responses and you can save. And when you get back to internet connectivity, then you will link or sync up and upload the results. So just so you're aware, as long as you're using one of the 3 apps, iOS, Android, or directly the app on the computer, it can work offline. If you choose to work in the browser version, which is what Jeremy's got up in front of you, that will not work offline. So I really strongly suggest you're using the app version to complete the checklist.
So then I guess you could use the paper version to do your internal audits?
Yes, you can. I mean, because we will be pulling down the current version, current paper checklist and replacing it with the one that mirrors the online version. But it will have every single question in it. Obviously, logic doesn't work on paper. So you can certainly do that. What you won't be able to do presently is to take that information and enter it into the system and generate a report out of it. The system is only usable for third-party compliance audits, both management and Vessel currently.
But if you were to perform an audit using it, the paper version, but then you could print it, file it, and then you would have a record of the audit being done with all of the information on it.
Yes,
Right.
but it's a PDF document that you'll print it and complete it, and however you generate your copy from there, yes, you will absolutely be able to continue to do that. You just can't use the automated system currently to perform internal audits.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Jeremy got a couple of hands raised here. Kevin?
Hi, Kevin Mullen. First of all, thank you, TVIB, for going. This is a lot of work, and thank you all for what you've done both on this form and the management form. First question is a clarification for me. I've run into companies that fellows on the deck crew, they serve a position of both deckhands and tankermen. And sometimes in some service, they will work as the boat side tankerman for a tank barge. And in other cases, they may have a tankerman endorsement, but the company or the boat simply just delivers the barge. For the purpose of this audit, would they be considered, or are they employing tankermen if the guys aren't actually tanking barges, but they hold a tankerman's license?
I believe it would go to the function that they're actually performing. So if they're actually performing tankerman services, then yes. But if they're not tankering at the time, and I might be wrong, Tab, if I am, please step in and correct me, but I believe it goes to the functionality of the role that they're filling currently on that vessel. So
You're spot on.
Okay, thank you. If I'm doing a vessel audit with this form, will the customer or the client be able to also access this form?
No. As of right now, there is only one user of a form at any given time. So even if we have 2 auditors on site, only one auditor can be in a form at the same time.
So should I suggest will there be like a paper version they could reference to?
If you print it and provide it to them, yes. But
Okay.
you cannot print from the system. We have a PDF that is going to be uploaded to the portal, and that's the document that your customer can use as a reference.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have another question from Brian.
First, thanks very much for putting this. This is a lot. I agree with the last commenter. A lot of work went into this, and this is outstanding work. And I think this question was already answered. I just wanted to just double check. This is just for external audits, not internal audits. Internal audits will continue to be paper.
that is correct. Yes.
Okay.
This is the electronic version is only for external compliance audits.
Got it. Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any others?
Yeah, this is Collins. If you're doing an internal audit, it's going to be the same, the forms version of that audit, not what they're presently using. Is that correct?
Correct. It will be a PDF version of, and it'll look a lot like what you're seeing on the screen here. Like Tav and I have stated before, the only problem with the paper-based version is you're going to get every single question on this audit, and you'll just have to know which ones to answer based on the questions and the situation for the vessel that you're auditing.
Well, I would make a suggestion for those companies that are using an internal process, which a lot of them are, that y'all do some training with them, because this form is going to be entirely different animal than what they're used to, and so I think they need to have, if they're using TVIB's form instead of something that they generated internally, then they're probably going to need some training on that.
Okay.
I just want to add a comment, really. Collins, I hear you and I understand fully. I will say that we as TVIB do not provide internal audit checklists, because frankly, an internal audit checklist should be written to truly test the TISMIS, and there's no way for a single organization to write a checklist that would test all 85 plus of our TPO customers. It's there, it's a resource, it's a great starting point, but I strongly recommend that any company take it and use it purely in that way, that it's a starting point. If they just don't know how to get started on building an internal audit checklist, it's a great place to step off, but it really shouldn't be the end, because it will never fully test a customer's or a company's TISMIS.
Jeremy, can you tab over to section 4, vessel tour? Someone had asked to see that section.
Yeah, so again, you got the show hide for your internal comments. And then it's the same questions that were in the paper-based version that you're currently using. And then there are some logic questions here as well.
Thank you. Kevin, did you have a question?
In regard to Tava's response to Colin, Tava, I agree with you, but I have seen some companies have developed their own internal forms, but a majority that I've seen are using the TVIB form. I don't know if that word's out to those TPO customers. That's all.
Thanks, Kevin.
In regards to internal audits, what are the minimal amount of documentation that should be available?
You're talking about conducting an actual audit and how much documentation you should see during that audit? Is that the question?
Elmer, that question was asked by you. Do you want to? He said yes.
I would, my answer to that, and Tava can correct me if I'm wrong, would be enough documentation that would give you a good sense that they've properly and adequately implemented their towing safety management system on each one of the vessels that you're doing the audit on.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I believe the regulation requires that unfortunately the reg is not very verbose in this area, and I believe it's sufficient depth and breadth to do exactly what you've said. It's going to look different from one company to a next. I suspect, Elmer, in some ways this was a rhetorical question that you wanted to hear TVIB's response, and I'm good with that. Again, it will look different one organization to the next, but I think at a minimum you want to see the tools, the record keeping, and the activities that orchestrate and manage the internal audit program, and then you want to see the output from it, and then lastly you want to see that they close the loop. Did they take it through their corrective action, their nonconformity deficiency process, any investigations if it was required by their system, and did they close out those incidents and again close the loop and provide documentation.
All right, I'll just finish up my portion by saying thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your time. I appreciate your attendance to this, and look forward to getting this out there to you to help simplify things. And if you have any questions that you might think of at the end of this webinar, feel free to shoot us an email, give us a call, and we'll get you an answer as quickly as we can. But again, thank you for your time. Y'all have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Jeremy.